So it's really, really important too. If you're working on a project with the customer, is keeping them in the loop. Constant communication. There's different ways to do that, email and texting and so on and so forth. But rather than waiting for the customer to call for updates, part of your system has to be to keep your customer in the loop when you're working with them. And so that's a system that you need to get in place. Another thing, we talk about problem solving and these bigger customers, these bigger people that you work with, where you get transferred from one department to another. And what these bigger companies like your Adobe need to do is to solve a problem without redirecting users or using a script. It says, according to a statistic, only 22% of businesses are able to solve a question at the first opportunity, which means 78% of businesses need at least 2 attempts to resolve an issue. And there's another stat out there that says it's very rare that your customer is going to say anything to you about it. They're just not going to come back. They're going to go someplace else.
Right. As many people as there are that complain about bad customer service, the majority of people never let the company know. They simply leave. You need to think of your customer. Now, Chip just mentioned communications. Communications is so important that a recent LinkedIn survey of employers said this was the number one skill that they are looking for in new hires, the ability to communicate. And unfortunately, it's becoming a skill that's hard to find. So you really do have to work on communication skills. Being able to not just talk to a customer, but listen, to understand what they're saying and be able to act on it. If you are a larger company, you need to empower the people who are answering your phones to make a decision as to how to help a customer. I had yet another customer service experience recently, this one with T-Mobile. T-Mobile is my cell phone provider. I had called them up. There was a discrepancy in my bill. Not a large one, but I was curious because my bill has been exactly the same since coming with them. All of a sudden, it jumped a few dollars. So I called to find out what had changed. The person who answered the phone was able to look through my account, see that when I had signed up, I had gotten a promotion. The promotion had expired, so the bill went up a little bit. Now, I was fine with that. That was all I called for, was that answer. T-Mobile, on the other hand, wasn't satisfied with that answer and reinitiated the promotion so that my bill would be exactly what it had been all along. They didn't have to go through a whole decision process to do this. The person that answered the phone was able to make this decision, get approval within a moment to make it go through, and moved forward and did it. Now, this wasn't something I asked for. All I wanted was the information as to what happened. So that was a great customer service example because they didn't just give me what I needed was the information. They made the experience better by putting another promotion on my bill.
Yeah, and that's another form of communication. It's not just person to person. It's philosophy of the company itself. It's communicating gratitude for being a customer. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Companies themselves can have incentives and awards and so on and so forth. Loyalty cards and memberships like Amazon Prime and so on and so forth works out really well that way. But other smaller companies, and that I like to send greeting cards, but a greeting card is just a great tool of gratitude or sending something of appreciation to a client just out of gratitude for somebody. The bottom line is if you use the element of positive surprise that comes from the bottom of your heart because they're a customer of yours, that does a world of good, and that gets them talking about you. Again, we talked about the power of referrals coming in time and time again because of things like that. And if that's part of your company philosophy and that's permeates every employee that you have that is dealing with people, amazing thing happens. And the bottom line is, you may have saved your customer a few bucks and maybe taken a little bit off the bottom line in one instance, but it comes back over and over and over again. You can't measure that.
Absolutely. And we're also talking about the difference between being reactive and being proactive. Reactive is when I'm calling customer service, they're in reactive mode. Whatever they do, they're reacting to the fact that I've already had a problem and had to call them. Staying in communication with your customer, sending the greeting card, that's proactive. And that's part of making your customer feel like they have no needs. And if you go in with that proactive mindset, what can I do? It goes a long way because it stops a lot of customer service problems before they even start. And a key to that proactive mindset is doing what you say you're going to do and not making promises that you can't keep. When your customer knows exactly what to expect and then gets that or better consistently, you don't have to worry about how you're responding to customer service because you're providing it on the front end before the problem happens.
Yeah, and shifting gears a little bit, obviously we're in the age of technology, and using technology to make experiences easier and quicker and more efficient is huge in today's world. And we talked a little bit about having chat rooms on your site, using social media to increase your brand awareness, but also to take whatever complaints or comments that you're having. The bottom line is if you have a system there to collect information and get back to customers, and sometimes make it a do-it-yourself kiosk experience where a lot of times you go into websites and some you're going to get things solved very, very quickly without having to talk to anybody. Others, it's just a nightmare where you have to pick up the phone 10 minutes later, and then you're going to be on the phone for an hour like you were. But if you can develop your systems and use technology, it's really, really important. I'm sure you have some pointers on how to do that.
There are a lot of technological tools you can use. Some are complicated systems. They have ready-made customer service software that you can run so that if you've got multiple people in your office, all customer service calls, all customer service emails are all logged into a single system so that when a customer calls back, no matter who gets that call, they know the history of what went on with that customer and can pick up where they left off rather than having the customer explain the whole thing all over again. There are also things called chatbots. These are relatively new. They've been around a little over a year or so. But these are automated systems that work on chat software like Facebook Messenger. So somebody can go to Facebook, send a message to your company, and this automated system can start the process of helping them. The chatbot can respond to simple commands, provide information, and if need be, connect them directly to a person to finish the job. There's also monitoring software so that if somebody talks about your company on Twitter, you know you're being mentioned and can respond quickly. That's actually one of the largest segments of Twitter traffic is people contacting companies for customer service. So there's all sorts of technology you can use to make your life easier. And I recommend using as much of it as possible because, again, the better experience someone has, if they don't have to wait on hold for you, they're more likely to come back, they're more likely to refer.
And it's also going to help you fine-tune your own operations because you're going to have more time to concentrate on other operational issues. The more you can run customer service on autopilot where people don't have to be put on hold, because that's what one of their biggest gripes is the time it takes to solve a problem. And if they know that they can get things done quickly just by going here and going there, it's a great thing for the customer. It's a great thing for you. Obviously, it's really, really important to keep in touch with them and have them have kind of like an emotional bond with your company for whatever reasons. But that's part of it. If it's an easy experience, if there's something to troubleshoot, use technology to do it if that's the best way to do it. And it's going to save you time and help you with your operations in other areas.
Right. And just because you're using technology doesn't mean you don't follow up. One of the customer service suggestions that articles all over the place say that, quite frankly, is almost impossible to put into use on a regular basis is they say, always answer your phone. Don't let it go to voicemail. Don't use an automated system. For most businesses, that's impossible. You can't be at your phone all the time, even in today's world when you're carrying your phone with you. However, it is important to have a policy about getting back to people. If somebody leaves a voicemail, you need to get back to them as soon as possible, not days later. Usually, you need to respond within hours if they've left a message. If it's a problem, you need to respond faster. But you need to be able to respond when somebody contacts you via voicemail, whatever the reason, on a timely basis. You can't make them wait. The same goes for email. The same goes for a Facebook message, a text. You need to respond quickly, but not necessarily immediately. There's a reason that these are going to these automated systems. It's because you have to get your work done. You can't just be answering messages. So if you schedule certain times during the day when you check your messaging and get back to them during those times, schedule, 15 minutes 4 times a day. It means nobody is waiting more than 2 hours to hear from you.
Yeah. And on another note, it's really, really important when you are working with a customer that before you hang up the phone with that customer, that you make sure that they're 100% satisfied. They got to know that you care about getting their problem solved. Ask them if there's anything else that you can possibly do for them. Make them go away knowing that they were right to give you a call. Because again, it's so important that you get all that feedback from them so that they become loyal to you. And that stat that I was looking for before says data suggests that as little as 4% of dissatisfied customers will ever speak up. So you got to ask them about that. You got to code things properly and leave them with a positive note when you're done working with them. That's what keeps them coming back.
Absolutely. And one of the things you need to be doing is providing this extra help, going that extra mile for a customer, even if there's not an immediate benefit to the company. Even if it's not a matter of, well, I'm going to lose this customer if we don't fix this. It could be a small thing. I believe I've actually told this story on the podcast before, but back in the 90s, I had a business that sold pop culture collectibles, and we did shows all over. At one of these shows, I had an action figure. The action figure was a collectible figure. It wasn't really meant for kids to play with, so it was more expensive. But this one kid, throughout the entire show, kept coming over and staring at this figure. He wanted that figure. He didn't have enough money for it. At the end of the show, he comes back, he looks at it again. I ask him how much. This was a $12 figure. I ask him how much he has. He says he has $6. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll sell it to you for $5. His face lights up. Now, I'm thinking, it's one less item I have to pack. I'm taking a few dollars off on the deal. I'm not going to make any money on this transaction, but